Whenever.
Okay, yeah. Alright, so I did my presentation on whether or not a cancer drug can lead to the treatment of Parkinson's disease. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about what Parkinson's disease is. It is a neurodegenerative disorder, and it's progressive, which means it gets worse over time. It's characterized by the loss of dopaminergic neurons within the substantia nigra, and that area of the brain is associated with movement and the production of dopamine. This loss of dopaminergic neurons leads to a decrease in the overall dopamine synthesis. There are a lot of symptoms for Parkinson's disease, but there are some that are really characterize it. And these symptoms occur gradually because it's a chronic disorder, so it's not something like you're just going to wake up and have all these severe symptoms. It's going to occur gradually over time. A main one is a tremor, and that's usually a resting tremor with Parkinson's disease. Gait instability, which is going to be trouble with walking. Bradykinesia, which is slow movements, so it's associated with it. And then rigidity, or stiffness of muscles and all that. So then we have etiology, what causes Parkinson's disease. Right now it's idiopathic, that means the cause is unknown. However, there's a lot of probable causes that are being researched because of what is usually seen within Parkinson's disease patients. A main one is an enzyme called C-able tyrosine kinase. When this enzyme is phosphorylated, it becomes activated, and that high levels of this activated enzyme are seen within Parkinson's patients. And this enzyme seems to lead to a lot of things such as increased oxidative stress within dopaminergic neurons, which is going to cause the death of these dopamine neurons. And then this increased C-able also inhibits a protein that's called parkin, and the inhibition of this protein causes a buildup of alpha-synuclein. And this buildup of alpha-synuclein forms like clumps of it within the body, and those clumps are known as Lewy bodies. So Lewy bodies are something that's seen within a lot of neurodegenerative disorders, and you can actually do an autopsy on someone with Parkinson's disease, and the presence of Lewy bodies can confirm it. So all of these leads to C-able being a major research topic right now for as a drug target, a main drug target, because it seems that if you could stop C-able, it may stop this other cascade of things from occurring. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about nilotinib and Parkinson's disease model research. So nilotinib is the cancer drug that I was talking about that may be able to treat Parkinson's disease. So yeah, right now it's a cancer medication, and it's specifically used to treat chronic myeloid leukemia in adults. It's a kinase inhibitor, which means it inhibits C-able since that's a kinase. And there's a lot of drugs out there that are kinase inhibitors, but most of them can't cross the blood-brain barrier. So a study done by Karupa Grounder et al. In 2014, it showed that nilotinib actually is able to cross the blood-brain barrier, and his study was done in mice with Parkinson's disease models. This study also showed that nilotinib protects against the loss of dopamine neurons, and it prevents reduction of dopamine levels. And it also restored the behavioral deficits that the mice had with the Parkinson's disease, so like a lot of their motor problems and other behavioral things. Another study by Hebron et al. In 2013 showed that nilotinib decreased alpha-synuclein in the substantia nigra by 84%. So that's going to lead to a reduction in Lewy bodies and all that that's associated with the neurodegenerative disorder. Okay, so this all led to the first clinical study on actual patients that had Parkinson's disease, since all that animal model research seemed to be promising. It was a recent study. It was done by Pagan et al. In 2016, and it took place at Georgetown University in their medical centers. The study had 12 participants, and they either had Parkinson's disease dementia, which is going to be like the loss of mental capabilities in someone who was previously diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, so it's going to be like a severe form of it. Or they had dementia with Lewy bodies, and this has a lot of characteristics that are similar to Parkinson's disease, and the Lewy bodies are present, like we talked about earlier. So they were split, these 12 participants were split into two groups. There were two different dosage groups. So one group of 5 participants received a daily oral dosage of 150 milligrams of nilotinib, and then the other group received a daily oral dosage of 300 milligrams of nilotinib, and this drug exposure period lasts for 24 weeks. And then there were a lot of evaluations, different tests that I will get into, that were performed at baseline, so before any drug exposure, at 8 weeks, at 24 weeks, which was at the end of the 6-month drug exposure period, and then at a 12-week follow-up, so 36 weeks. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about the demographics of the study, just to give you a little bit of background information about who it was done on. First of all, there were 30 people that were screened for the study, but only 12 were enrolled in it. The other 18 failed screening because of comorbidities, which means that they had other problems, like maybe a cardiovascular issue or a hepatic issue with the liver. So they only wanted people who were just strictly at Parkinson's disease or the dementia with Lewy bodies for the study. Out of the 12 that were enrolled, 1 withdrew because of a myocardial infarction, so he was no longer able to participate in the study. And then there was also 1 that voluntarily discontinued the study. So this just shows the NIL01, NIL05. Those are like the patient identifications. Like the numbers are all random because they were numbered out of those 30 patients at first. So that will always refer in the rest of the results to the patient. And then it just shows you which dosage group they're in. It gives you backgrounds on each of the patients, the age, gender, weight, height. It also talks a little bit about what previous drugs they were on to treat Parkinson's disease. And then down here it gives the stage of Parkinson's disease they were at. And they were all at a stage of 3 to 5, so they had severe Parkinson's disease or the dementia with Lewy bodies. Okay, this next table shows some results based off the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scores. So the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Score, it's in 4 sections. The first one tests things like mood and behavior. The second part of it tests your daily activities with the Parkinson's patient. The third one is for motor, and then the fourth one has to do with how they are responding to treatment. So for this UPDRS-3, these are just the scores referring to just motor. And as you can see, for the 150 milligram dosage and the 300 milligram dosage, when they're scored on motor, in this case for this test, a lesser score is better. That means that they would have less motor issues. So on average, for the 150 milligram dosage group, at screening, they were scored at a 37.8. And then after the 6-month trial of nilotinib, they went down to a 34.4. So their motor issues did get better. But then you can see at week 36, the 12-week follow-up, so that's 12 weeks that they were no longer on the drug for, that score jumped up again. So the effects were reversed after the drug exposure had stopped. And then for the 300 milligram, it's the same trend that can be seen. At screening, it was a higher number. At the end of the 6-month trial of nilotinib, the number lowered, and then at that 12-week follow-up, it increased again, so their motor deficits returned. For the 150 milligram now and 300 milligram, that was tested for the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Score of 1 through 4, so that's everything and motor combined score. It's the same thing. At screening, they had a high number. On average, for the 150 milligram, it was 72.6. And then by the end of that 6-month trial, it went down to 65.6. And then at that 12-week follow-up, it fluctuated back up again to 79.2 on that one. And it is, again, the same trend for the 300 milligram dosage group. Okay. This table is testing for cognitive and mental abilities within the Parkinson's patients. So they did the mini mental state examination, and that test can be, you can have a possible score of 30 points. So on this, a higher score is going to be better. That means you're more you got more mental ability. And then they did the SCOPA cognitive. That's the scale for outcome in Parkinson's disease cognition test. and that's scored on a range of 43, and again, a higher score is better. And for that first one, the mini mental state examination, that is based off of a series of questions that you're asked to test your mental abilities. And then the second one, for the Parkinson's disease cognition test, that's more of like activities that you participate in to test your mental abilities. So at screening for 150 milligram dosage that participated in the mini mental state examination, there was an average of 15.4 for their score out of 30. And then by the end of the 6-month drug exposure of nilotinib, that jumped up to a 19.25 for their score. So their mental and cognitive abilities do seem to be improving while on nilotinib. And it is the same thing for the 300 milligram dosage. And that same trend that we saw in the previous graph where the number length would drop at the 12-week follow-up, that same thing happened there too. So it declines again after nilotinib is stopped. And it is the same thing for this scope of cognition test too. So numbers increase after the 6-month period, and it decreases again after that 12-week follow-up. So now a little bit of discussion about the results. These results they refer to in the paper by Fagan et al. As speculative. Nilotinib is safe and tolerable, and that was like the main goal that they set out to find at that 150 milligram and 300 milligram dosage. Patients didn't experience many problems or side effects at all with it. Nilotinib can enter the cerebrospinal fluid, and they know that based off of all the lumbar punctures they did and other various tests. And it may inhibit c-Abl. Since it inhibits c-Abl, it may reduce oxidative stress. And the cerebral spinal fluid HPA levels were increased. HPA is the end product of dopamine metabolism. So HPA levels in a Parkinson's disease patient are typically very low. So with nilotinib, these levels increase. Motor and cognitive scores improved, as I showed you from the tables and the results. And now this same group that did this study is looking to do a clinical trial in 2017 that will determine a therapeutic dosage for nilotinib. So instead of just doing their 150 milligrams or 300 milligram groups, they want to see what dosage is best for the treatment of Parkinson's disease. They also want to use a larger amount of participants in this study since they only had 12 and they had that one withdrawal during the study, actually 2 withdrawal during the study. So I want to use a larger number so that the results won't be as speculative. And they also want to control for placebo effects. They want to do this by doing a double-blinded study. So overall, nilotinib can cross the blood-brain barrier, and it can inhibit c-Abl, which leads to protection of dopamine neurons and an increased level of dopamine. All the findings that we've seen in the clinical studies were consistent with the preclinical studies done on the animal models. So that's a lot of confirmation on this research, and it just allows you to be able to go further since they had positive results with the research. And a lot of further studies will allow for more conclusions, like I said, so that the results aren't as speculative. And those are my references. And thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? There's a lot of detail on this one, so anything you didn't understand.
I just don't have time to go through the entire thing, but if you want me to go back to the graphs at all, we can look at some more. Yeah.
I have a question. So when you talked about the Lewy bodies, you said that most of the time they are seen on autopsies.
Yes.
How are they identified if in like living people? Are they just?
I don't think you can see them until an autopsy.
So how are they?
That's what I read in one thing, but I don't know if that's true. I read that in one paper.
There are some new imaging techniques where they're trying to come up with